This is Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name is Evan Jansen. This show is broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights are repeated at 2 o'clock every afternoon with a rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every day. The entire show can also be watched in full on our YouTube channel at your leisure. Today, we look back 20 years after the genocide in Rwanda that cost nearly 1 million lives. Chinese businesses are investing heavily in struggling South African concerns, and we look ahead to today's World T20 semi-final between South Africa and India in Dhaka in Bangladesh. But first, let's take a look at our top stories. The police's special investigating unit has had to apologize after a staff member is said to have misinterpreted an email on the SIU's probe on Nkandla. It's believed the employee unknowingly marked the investigation as completed. President Jacob Zuma said on Wednesday he would only comment fully to Parliament after the completion of the SIU probe on upgrades to his private home. Opposition parties and political commentators have accused Zuma of stalling on the Nkandla saga because of the upcoming election. Bus drivers operating feeder buses through the Gautrain embarked on an unprotected strike in Johannesburg today, according to Gautrain operating company Bombela. The company did not receive any strike notification from the workers. Bombela spokesperson Errol Braithwaite says negotiations with the drivers are currently underway. Meanwhile, Johannesburg's Rea Vaya bus service is expected to resume later today. The strike action came to an end after an agreement was signed last night. The drivers embarked on industrial action on Monday, leaving commuters stranded. And in cricket, both South African national men's and women's teams will be playing for a place in their respective ICC World 2020 finals. This is the 8th head-to-head T20 international meeting between the two sides, with India winning 5 out of 7. India, the favourites, taking into consideration their past success at major ICC tournaments. On the ladies' side, management will assess the conditions during the semi-final between England and the Proteas women to determine whether to play a second frontline spinner. The men's match begins at 3 p.m. this afternoon, with the women's at 10:30 this morning. This month, we remember 20 years after the Rwandan genocide. Certainly one of the darkest times in our continent's history. Nigerian author Wole Soyinka wrote, while reflecting on that dark time, that Rwanda is our nightmare, South Africa is our dream. This is what he wrote. At least 800,000 people died during what some label the most momentous month in Africa's post-independence history. What happened in Rwanda in 1994 not only raised questions about the African continent, but the world, who sat in silence. Today, we are joined by one of our own, Isaac Como, who's a producer of Spotlight Africa on Channel Africa, to talk about 20 years after the genocide. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you too. Thank you for having me.
It's 20 years, and it's almost like, in a way, the world has forgotten, and it's something that we want to forget about. But put a human face to this experience.
Well, Rwanda basically is a shame, and the human face basically is that of sadness. It's an issue that was not supposed to have happened. It's a genocide that's supposed to have happened, and basically it comes from people playing around with a very sensitive issue, ethnicity.
Continues to be a problem throughout the continent, even in our very own country here in South Africa. Ethnicity seems to be an issue on the continent. Why is that?
Ethnicity is an issue basically because of elites. Ethnicity has been politicized. Ethnicity as such is not a problem, but when elites try to come to corner power with the new dispensation of the neoliberal dispensation and globalization, where you had the structural adjustment programs, where the economies of countries were actually predetermined. Now you find that politics, they don't have any issues of economics to talk about. So the whole thing has gone to ethnicity. So ethnicity has been politicized, and that is very dangerous. And it's the same thing in Europe, where you find that racism has been politicized.
Yeah. talk about that ethnicity that was politicized 20 years ago was obviously the darkest hour in the history, the type of ethnic cleansing that we saw happening. For those that don't know, one of our producers, a young lady who don't really know what happened, just recap for us the terrible things that occurred back then and how many lives were lost really and why.
Well, that's an open question, but basically there was a rebellion taking place. And what it was the RPF. The RPF was a Tutsi group which started from Uganda, and it was supported by Uganda. Let us be very clear about that. Yeah. Those people, most of them, they were Ugandan citizens. They had been given citizenship of Uganda, although they were of Tutsi origin, Rwandan origins. And again, people have got to realize that those people had gone to Uganda and Tanzania and Zaire as refugees, and mostly their parents, way back in 1959, 1960. And that also it was the result of another conflict that took place against the Tutsis. But again, that conflict, it was triggered by an attack of the Tutsis on a Hutu politician. It was a time of independence, and there was that change. And so you find that there was this ethnic element whereby the Tutsis are resisting the Hutu onslaught in the political scene. And the backlash was this, that the Tutsis, there was a pogrom against the Tutsis. They went into exile. Now, when those young boys grew up, they started a revolution which culminated into the RPF taking power. But then, with that, just before the RPF took over power, you find that there were elements within Rwanda. The Rwandan government was Hutu-controlled. Now, they resented the coming in of the Tutsis. They say that the feudalists are coming back. And that's where ethnicity was politicized. And the night that the president's plane was actually shot down, which is a very controversial issue, that's where the whole thing, that's the thing that triggered the genocide.
That triggered the powder keg, really. Should the world hang its head in shame for what happened and the lack of intervention and the lack of focus that happened back then? Today, in the Crimea, you've had something that was almost trivial in a sense, and the world focused their attention on it. But here, we lost 1 million lives almost, and there wasn't such a focus. Why?
In fact, the world should hang itself in shame, but I mean, the people should hang themselves in shame initially. It is the regional body, the East Africans. And the people who should take the blame for it, most of the blame, it's the Ugandans for actually sponsoring this ethnic tension in that area. Because the RPF, basically, when it came in as an ethnic force, although they claimed that they were egalitarian. And again, the world should hang itself in shame because the United Nations, there was a warning that such a thing could take place, but they did not take it very serious.
How did Rwanda rebuild itself over the last 20 years?
Well, the first thing that Rwanda had to do is actually to get rid of ethnicity, and that was done through legislation. But the second thing is where you've got the African thing of reconciliation. It should be realized that after the RPF took over, there was the Rwanda Tribunal, the United Nations Rwanda Tribunal, which was based in Arusha, to try the genociders. And again, the government actually had to deal with it at the village level. There they started courts which were called gacaca, which basically, those courts, they were punitive in a way, but mostly it was based on transitional justice. The African situation, when it comes to dealing with such issues, they deal it with transitional justice, where they try to reconcile the warring partners. And that, I think, is one of the biggest success of Rwanda.
How does it affect, your history always affects your present, how does it affect the Rwanda of today, the Rwanda that is militaristic almost in its nature, the Rwanda that is said to be involved in not one but several conflicts around the continent, especially in the DRC and so forth. How does that affect where Rwanda is today and this kind of rogue state status that's almost emerging?
Yeah, in fact, that's a very interesting question, because basically there are two things that has taken place. The first thing is the thing that we talk about is transitional justice. If you look at the general population of Rwanda, they're reconciling amongst themselves. And that is done independent of the state. people are ashamed of what happened, and people are really coming together. And right now, the Rwandans, without being forced, they're identifying themselves as Rwandans, not as Tutsis. But then that has put pressure on the government, on the state, because the state itself is ethnically based. It's a government which is monopolized and directed by the Tutsis. And as you can find now that the government, the state does not want to devolve its power.
Yeah.
And then there are elements within which want to actually bring this whole thing of reconciliation to the state level.
Yeah.
And that's how it is actually reflecting. This change of the state makeup, it has got to take place. And
finally,
that's where the pressure is.
Finally, we're running out of time, but you've got 45 seconds to tell us what is the key lessons that we as Africans have learned from what happened in Rwanda.
Well, the thing that we learned from Rwanda is that we should actually stop not ethnicize or politicize ethnicity. That's the most important thing. Number two, the media. The media should not actually fan ethnic hatred, because the media played a very important part in actually sort of fanning the genocide.
Well, Isaac, thank you very much for joining us
today.
Very, very interesting insights and on a very sad day, really, for Africa as we look back on 20 years of the Rwandan genocide. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, top story. The police's special investigating unit has had to apologize after an IT staff member is said to have misinterpreted an email on the SIU's probe on Nkandla and marked the investigation as completed. President Jacob Zuma said on Wednesday he would only comment fully after the completion of an SIU probe on upgrades to his private home at Nkandla. The opposition says he will use the SIU probe as a possible scapegoat.
A fight the opposition is not giving up on, frustrated with the president postponing his response until finalization of the SIU investigation. The third Nkandla probe, the interministerial task team absolved the president, but fingers government, officials and contractors. Thuli Madonsela found he unduly benefited from non-security upgrades and violated the executive member's ethics code. Public Works is considering instituting a forensic audit. The SIU will conclude its probe by the end of May.
Observations have been made about third parties. Now, in our duty to be fair to everybody, we've got to give these third parties an opportunity to present their side of the story before we hand over those files to the Department of Public Works.
The President remains concerned about the allegations of maladministration and impropriety around procurement in the Nkandla project, particularly the allegations of cost inflation.
In his response to Parliament, President Zuma talks about stark differences in the findings and the remedial action in the Public Protector's report and that of the Interministerial Task Team.
The President seems to be trying to cook up a narrative about the validity of the findings of the Public Protector and at the same time use the SIU investigation as a kind of kingmaker finding to try and break a deadlock that has been invented between the Public Protector's report and the Government Task Team report on this matter.
The ANC refused to comment, saying it's a matter between Parliament and the Executive. Chilean Pillay, SABC News.
Interest from Chinese companies in acquiring struggling South African companies when they are in business rescue or financial distress are well on the rise. So says Eric Levenstein, the director and head of business rescue team at Worksman's Attorneys. As an emerging market, South Africa offers a number of opportunities for foreign and local investors, and because of distress funds, companies might become available at heavily discounted prices. Mr. Levenstein, who just got back from Beijing, is in studio with us to talk more about this very interesting topic. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
You've just come back from Beijing. It's a very interesting topic. People always talk about a struggling economy, and I suppose in a way that's the irony. This is what makes it, in this case, quite lucrative for these businesses to come and invest in struggling companies in South Africa.
Yeah, well, Eben, distressed asset investing is huge in the United States and the United Kingdom. We were in China. We engaged with various Chinese investors who are very keen to look at the distressed debt market in South Africa. And particularly because we've got our new business rescue regime, it offers opportunities for investors to come along, make an offer to creditors and pick up good assets for good value and generally at discounted prices. And that's really what we spoke to them about. We had to explain how business rescue operates, what opportunities there are, and clearly there's a lot of interest, particularly in relation to natural resources, manufacturing and property investments in South Africa.
We've seen the type of businesses in South Africa, high-profile businesses have gone into business rescue, the likes of Top TV and the sort of media company that had Asian investment and so forth. But which are the sort of areas within the South African market that at the moment offers the best value or has the most interest from China especially?
Well, Eben, there's no doubt natural resources is on the radar. There's a lot of cash flush Chinese investors who are looking not only in South Africa but in Africa. But in South Africa, you might have mining companies that reach a point of financial distress. The whole credit issue can be distilled within a business rescue process. They can come along, speak to a practitioner, and do a deal whereby they pick up the asset. Now, we've already seen South Gold, which is a mining concern, a gold mine, which was picked up by Wits Gold out of a business rescue process that is being bedded down, and they were quite interested in that acquisition to try and mirror it in respect of others that might become distressed as we go into this year.
You've just come back from that. I want to ask you that the Chinese often stand accused, even when Barack Obama visited recently, of coming to Africa just to take out resources. Are they aware of that sort of thing, that they have to change the way they do business on the continent a little bit going forward if they are to win over the confidence of locals?
Even in Africa, you have seen a lot of conflict in respect of labour forces arriving to extract natural resources. Yeah. But in South Africa, and what we're talking about is an existing infrastructure, an existing labour force, where they would invest at the top level, but the company would remain intact. All that would happen is more funding becomes available to pay employees, to pay management, and to get the asset out of the ground after a company has reached a point of financial distress. So they're alive to that, and clearly that is a very sensitive topic, and it's something that they're very well aware of.
What were the sort of key questions or the most frequently asked questions that they had for you while you were there in discussions with them?
Well, generally they need to understand how business rescue works, who are the practitioners that run these companies, what's the appetite for it, how many have gone in to business rescue. And we told them at this stage you're looking at about 1,000 companies that have gone in to business rescue since 2011 when this became part of our law. And the other interesting topic which is raised time and time again, particularly in the mining sector, is the labour unrest issue. You know, how much of a problem is it, etc. And our counter to that is clearly the business rescue practitioner can take control of the labour force within that process.
Sort of wider picture, how do you see these kinds of intervention play out both economically and politically for South Africa?
Well, you know, whether or not government is going to intervene in this kind of investment, time will tell. I don't think that that's on the cards. I think there's no prohibition on foreign investment coming into South Africa. Really, a company reaches a point of financial distress, it's got two options. Either to go into liquidation with the incumbent loss of workforces and the business dies, or a possible business rescue with an investment from the likes of the Chinese investor.
Finally, business rescue in South Africa. Just give us the broad strokes. How big is it? How many companies are in trouble? And just maybe just a quick explanation to those that don't know the process.
Well, I mean, when a company reaches a point of financial distress, it can't pay its debts. It doesn't have cash. So it reaches a decision at board level either to enter liquidation or to at least assess the possibility of business rescue. And we have seen a lot of companies come out of the process very well with new owners, with a situation where companies have not gone into a formal liquidation process. Of course, not every company is a candidate for business rescue, and many should in fact be put into liquidation. But that really is something which is taking force, and we have seen some significant traction in the business rescue space.
Well, Mr. Levenstein, thank you very much for joining us today. That's Eric Levenstein, who's just come back from Beijing and talks about the interest of Chinese companies in, securing deals with companies in South Africa that are in financial distress or in business rescue mode as we know it here. Thank you for joining us again.
Pleasure.
Now let's just take a quick look at what you are thinking and talking about on social media. Refillworth talks to my fellow commuters. Gautrain drivers are on an illegal strike this morning. Yes, it's causing absolute mayhem here in Johannesburg. Rafaelway is not very happy, and I'm sure so are many others of you out there. Johannesburg SA at Joburg RSA says Gautrain bus services at Sandton, Rosebank, Midrand and Rhodesfield stations will not be operating today due to a strike. Use alternatives. Lebs says Gautrain bus is not running today. How convenient. Yes, my dear, sarcasm helps a lot. Oscar Ricky says Gautrain much the same as Metrorail when it comes to service delivery. It is an illegal strike, so we can understand the frustration. Andre says Gautrain bus drivers on strike. No buses today, he says. And then H.A. for Mark says, got to thank Gautrain for letting us know. Yes, indeed. There are many unhappy commuters in Johannesburg today. And if you're unhappy, let us know. Send us your message at SABC Newsroom on Twitter, or you can go to our Facebook page where you can, leave a post and we'll get back to it. Of course, let's look at that Facebook page, by the way, Mzama. Well, while the Rea Vaya bus services are operating again, it's the Gautrain bus services that are a nightmare this morning. Gautrain bus services at Sandton, Midrand, Rhodesfield will not be opening today due to an illegal driver strike. If you want to blow up some steam or anything else, let us know on Twitter or Facebook how bus drivers are affecting your daily routine today. We want to know, and we know that you are not happy. Of course, in entertainment news, after 21 years, US comedian David Letterman announced on his show that he will retire as the host of the iconic Late Show on CBS later this year. He made the announcement last night. Here it is.
Program, and I said, Leslie, it's been great. You've been great. The network has been great, but I'm retiring.
This is really?
Yep.
This is true. You actually did this?
Yes, I did. Wow.
Well, do I have a minute to call my accountant? Because
So I just want to reiterate my thanks and for the support from the network, all of the people who have worked here, all of the people in the theater, all the people on the staff, everybody at home. Thank you very much. And what this means now is that Paul and I can be married.
Yeah, that's David Letterman. As I say, all good things come to an end. True legend of the game, and one of the people that I've always had a giggle and a smile at in our business. We'll be back after a short little break. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
Mop-up operations continued in various parts of the Western Cape today after the province was hit by devastating storms at the weekend. 3 deaths have been reported. Thousands have been affected.
In the first 9 months of the year, credit card fraud shot up by 22%. This has cost the banking industry more than 366 million rand.
So what consumers must now watch out for is that if they believe their card is swallowed, they must cancel their card whilst they're actually in front of the ATM.
That's Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
This is the program in which we showcase different aspects of government.
The Northern Cape is a land of many diverse cultures, of frontier history and brave missionaries. It also has countless challenges.
The Northern Cape has been plagued by especially alcohol abuse, rape and common assault and things like that.
More opportunities are being created each year to benefit all in the region.
This is a nation at work.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom on SABC News. More than 2,000 triathletes taking part in this year's Ironman in Port Elizabeth will face a much tougher race route than the previous 9 years the event was held in the friendly city. The increase in competitor numbers over the past few years have necessitated changes to the swimming and cycling routes. These changes bring the South African Ironman race more in line with other Ironman races across the world. Athletes are also hoping for benign weather conditions on Sunday to ease the pain of this much tougher course. Well, we're now going to cross to our reporter Jean Lee, who is at Hobie Beach in Port Elizabeth, the epicenter of the race. She will talk to Paul Wolf, the race director of Ironman South Africa. Good morning, Janine.
Hi, good morning, Urban, and welcome to Nelson Mandela Bay. We are the water sports capital, and we wanted to bring you a little closer to the sea this morning, but obviously that's not going to happen. We're under shelter here, or just a little bit, because the heavens look like they are about to open. And as you said a little bit earlier, the athletes hoping for very nice, calm conditions come the weekend. That's Sunday. The weather report does look like it's going to play along, and things are going to be okay for the over 2,000 athletes that are here for the Ironman Africa event here in Nelson Mandela Bay. It's a massive endurance event. There's a 3.8 kilometer swim, there's a 180 kilometer bike ride, and then the athletes have to go on to do a full marathon after that. So it's not for the faint-hearted. It's really a massive challenge, and we have a wonderful pro field here in Nelson Mandela Bay for the 10th anniversary of this event, which brings millions into Nelson Mandela Bay. But let's chat to Paul Wolf, race director. Paul, the event keeps growing and growing. How are you doing this?
Just don't know what the secret was this year. We suddenly had 700 people more than the year before, so we had to make plans to be able to accommodate them. It's our 10th year, so the race has just taken off. I think it's a new endurance sport to the world. If you look around the world, there's just so many more Ironmans opening. So I think everybody wants that M.Dot.
Paul, now you've done some changes to the course. Talk us through these.
For safety reasons, we changed the swim. It's a 3.8k continuous sea swim. We've got 3 separate waves, so we let the athletes spread out a bit more. It's going to be a bit easier because they don't have to go through the waves. A lot of the internationals and the guys from upcountry aren't used to duck diving our big waves and then swimming. So now they don't have to exit twice onto the beach and go out again. So that's made that a lot safer. On the bike side, there were just too many athletes, even the previous years, on 3 loops of 60. So we've taken them to 2 loops of 90. So it's going to be a lot fairer course, a little bit tougher, especially if the easterly wind blows. But yeah, the guys will enjoy it, I'm sure.
Paul, now this is the bread and butter for the pros, but let's talk about the thousands of others that aren't professional athletes, people like me and others. What kind of training goes into getting this event done?
It's incredible how many people that I know of that have never done sport ever, this endurance sport before, that have come and watched this race in the city. The city's taken ownership of it, and then they suddenly see, hang on, if that guy can do it, I can do it. And actually it's more in the head than anything in the sport. Yeah, the guys want to race and try and go to Kona, they'll train between 12 and 20 hours a week. Pros go to between 25 and 30 hours a week, but you can get away with 8 to 10 hours a week. So there's no more training than comrades. You just have to pace it right and do the proper training, and you can do it.
Now, talking about Kona, just explain what the impact that this race has for slots that are up for grabs.
Yeah, there are 50 slots available for people to go to the World Championships. You have to qualify some in the world, so you have to win a slot. So you can't just enter it. So yeah, the guys are chasing the slots. A lot of our internationals, we've got 500 this year, so it's a lot more than we've ever had. Plus, that's great for the city, but they're obviously all chasing the slots to go to Kona.
Now, Paul, South Africans love a local hero. Who should South Africans be keeping their eye on for Sunday's race?
Well, hopefully the boy favourite, James Cullum, is going to come good this year. He had a good race in East London, he won it. He came 4th in the World Championships in Kona last year. So, yeah, he's a firm favourite, I'm sure, with all the PE people and the South Africans alike.
How important is this Port Elizabeth crowd on Sunday?
The city has taken total ownership of this. The guys start camping out here from Friday, Saturday night already. They actually want to box with each other if someone pinches their spot. But yeah, it's crazy. There's 70,000 people out on this course. I've raced around the world, and I obviously can't race here because I'm the race director. And I wish I could race here just for that crowd support we have here in the city.
And talk us a cut-off time. What's it like those last few minutes before cut-off, and what time is it?
Yeah, there's some different cut-offs this year because of the new cycle course. So the first loop of 90, the people have to be past the beachfront at 1:30. So I'm afraid to say some people will lose their cut-offs at 1:30 on the bike. We also have a swim cut-off at 2 hours and 20 minutes, but most people make that. That's quite an easy one. But the new challenge is going to be on the bike. We have another cut-off out at Maitland's, which is the 90k mark. We need these things to open the city. We're closing down a huge part of the city for 17 hours. So we're trying to accommodate both the residents and the athletes. So effectively you have to average 22 k's an hour for 180 k's to make the cutoffs.
Paul, rands and cents, what does it mean for the city financially?
We looked at this now with all these international guys coming in. Direct spend in the city is 80 to 100 million rand spent, direct spend in the city. These guys coming here 5 to 10 days with their entourages. If you look at the Bahraini touring party, there are 80 people come to spend almost a week in PE. So that is big spend in our city.
Paul Wolf, Rafe Director for Ironman Africa, thank you very much. It's motivating to be out here and to see all these athletes. There's some in the water behind me at the moment, just loosening up before Sunday's event. They all look lean and mean. So, Eben, here's a challenge. How about next year you and I take this on? What do you think?
Yes, Janine, I've started training already, but I'm thinking about 2016.
Okay, let's push it out to that, but I'm going to hold you to it.
Thank you very much, Janine Lee, always bringing us fantastic stories from the friendly city, Port Elizabeth, down in the Eastern Cape. That is Janine Lee. Let's take another look at what you're talking about on social media, what you're saying. Mashatu says the right to strike at Amplatz, Impala and Lonmo is now gone to hunger strike to millions. AMCU, please, please, please. Yes, that's a plea as the people are suffering because they haven't been working since the middle of January. Monde says the persistent question is how many jobs will be retained in the aftermath of the strike. That is a very, very smart question, as most of these mines are talking about divesting or disinvesting and even closing down some of their shops. Mamacheti says it won't end well. Anglo Platinum says it will continue to pursue the legal process of claiming damages from Labour Union AMCU. That's right, there is a legal. If Joseph Matunja wants to return to the negotiating table, he and AMCU must be willing to negotiate and not be hardline as before. So says Rohit. And Eleanor says, who thinks that AMCU should march on Nkandla? Possibly the only AMCU action I'd support, she said. Time for us to take another short commercial break. When we come back, well, we talk cricket. South Africa, big match. We're not going to use the C word today. Big match, World T20, South Africa against India a little bit later. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Welcome to our Friday edition of A View from the House, coming to you live from Parliament. My name is Asanda Mbeche. President Jacob Zuma officially opens the National House of Traditional Leaders and calls on traditional leaders to work closely with elected public representatives.
South Africa is a much better place to live in than it was before 1994. Many of our traditional leaders can attest to that fact, having seen improvements.
A View from the House, weekdays at 2:30 on SABC News.
Jessica the hippo was found after she was washed down the river shortly after birth. Today, she is a large hippo and still returns for feeding and human interaction.
She also loves body exfoliating. Yes, she has a mask as well.
Jessica is the world's most famous hippo, and perhaps she's the only one who has forgotten how aggressive she's supposed to be.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a look at your top stories. The police's special investigating unit has had to apologize after a staff member is said to have misinterpreted an email on the SIU's probe on Nkandla. It's believed the employee unknowingly marked the investigation as completed. President Jacob Zuma said on Wednesday he would only comment fully to Parliament after the completion of the SIU probe on upgrades to his private home. Opposition parties and political commentators have accused Zuma of stalling on the Nkandla saga because of the upcoming election. Bus drivers operating feeder buses to the Gautrain embarked on an unprotected strike in Johannesburg today. This according to Gautrain operating company Bombela. The company did not receive any strike notification from the workers Bombela spokesperson Errol Braithwaite says negotiations with the drivers are underway right now. Meanwhile, Johannesburg's Rea Vaya bus drivers are back at work today. Their strike action came to an end after an agreement was signed last night. The drivers embarked on industrial action on Monday, leaving commuters stranded. An Australian Navy vessel, the Ocean Shield, is expected in the area being searched for wreckage of the missing Malaysian airplane. The ship is fitted with a black box detector. It's believed the plane went down somewhere in the South Indian Ocean nearly a month after Malaysia Airlines jet carrying 239 people vanished. Authorities still have no idea how or why it crashed and warn that unless the black box is found, the mystery may never be solved. Officials warn that without a confirmed crash site, hopes of recovering the black box recorder are slim. Now, last week we brought you international fashion designer David Tlale and Kaizer Chiefs superfan Alfred Baloyi, who have teamed up in a unique campaign launched by Nedbank. This week, we up the ante. We've got the Baka Baka here with us in studio. Katrine has got all the details for you.
Last week we did bring you international fashion designer David Tlale and Kaizer Chiefs superfan Alfred Baloyi, who have teamed up in a unique campaign launched by the Nedbank Cup. Yes, the worlds of sport and fashion are set to collide. Football Fan Couture is a campaign that aims to mix fashion and sport by teaming up 3 of our country's top fashion designers and 3 football superfans to come up with unique, over-the-top and one-of-a-kind couture outfits. Now today we have designer Craig Jacobs from Fundutsi, as well as Orlando Pirates superfan Eugene Koza, not the comedian, by the way. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
It's so nice to have you guys in the studio. Craig, just tell me how did you decide to become part of this campaign?
I was thinking about it, and I was told Nedbank talks about making dreams a reality or making dreams come true. And I've been blessed that I've been able to make my dream come true with my clothing label. So I was really excited about working on this project. And Football Fan Couture is what it's called.
Yes.
And it's like taking 2 completely different disciplines and mashing them all up together. And I think that, when you look at like what Eugene does, he designs his own clothing. So this is an exciting way for me to kind of share my knowledge with him, and I can learn a little bit from him, because the manner in which he does things with found objects and paints on his clothing and just comes up with these crazy designs.
Complete fashion designer yourself. Tell me, how are you planning on mixing sports and fashion? Some people might think that it's completely opposites.
Well, you know what? It's a spectacle, just like fashion is. Fashion is about, we have a catwalk. In soccer, they have a soccer field. People make an effort. They want to be noticed.
Yes.
They want to stand out from the crowd. And that's what we also try and do in fashion. So working together, we've been talking, we went fabric shopping together, just to look at different fabrics and just to see what we can come up with.
I see the photo we've got here. I know it's a photo from Nicolia Ogle.
Yes.
Tell me a bit more, Eugene. How's it been working with Craig?
Well, it's a nice thing to meet somebody like Craig, a fashion designer, and I'm so happy. So we are sharing our ideas of designing fashion and my things.
Yes.
So it's quite a fun and nice thing.
If I can ask you to stand up for us a bit and just show us your outfit.
Yeah.
And tell us a bit more about your outfit. Why is Orlando Pirates the best team?
The best team?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Baka Baka. As you see, I'm Baka Baka. And forever.
Come stand here for us. Let's have a look at the outfit.
Okay.
Now, Craig, how are you planning on mixing all of this into high-end fashion?
I think it's really interesting because, all the soccer teams play with iconography. And I think with Pirates, it's very key in terms of color. So there's black and white, and there's a little bit of red. Eugene's previous outfit when I first met him was very black with a little bit of red. Here he's mixed it up with like a lot of red. And then there's all those logos and playing with different elements. I mean, there's the skull and crossbows, there's the baka, there's the makarapa, there's the horns. There's so many things. I mean, I'm just trying to filter it down and figure out what I'm going to concentrate on. And
you can take a seat again for us. Now, I'm also wearing Craig Jacobs today. Can you tell me a bit more about my outfit? I'm going to stand up and then... Where's this outfit from?
Okay, this piece is actually, you're one of the first people to actually wear this. It's part of my winter collection that I showcased last year in October. And the collection was called Metamorphosis and was inspired by the African blue-winged butterfly. So you can see that print there was actually, I worked with a digital print designer who's worked with a lot of international labels like Burberry.
And the material feels fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of, when I design things, I want a woman to feel really special. I want her to feel comfortable, and I want her to look beautiful.
You've got the first of a kind fashion show coming up tomorrow.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
It's kind of a little bit of a crazy thing. I'm actually been having sleepless nights this week thinking about it because no one's ever done a fashion show at OR Tambo International Airport in Ekurhuleni. And I was literally just walking through the airport one day, catching a flight and thinking, I design clothes on a runway, and in the airport they have lots of runways where you take off. So let's find a way of doing something together.
Now, you will be honoring 20 years of democracy.
Yes.
How are you going to incorporate that into your designs?
Okay. Well, in terms of 20 years of democracy, at the airport at OR Tambo International, they've got an exhibition celebrating Oliver Reginald Tambo, and also reflecting 20 years of democracy. That's in the International Viewing Deck, which is upstairs where you see the planes take off and land. And that's our setting for the show. And in terms of the collection, I've taken inspiration behind movement and change, because we've changed so much over the last 20 years. And also looking at key symbols of our democracy, elements like our national emblems, and unpacking that into the collection.
Well, I'm looking very forward to that because I will be attending that event. Just quickly tell us, where do you see design in 10 years from now?
I think we're increasingly finding comfort in our own voice. And I think that's really important in South Africa. We've no longer got this chip on our shoulder thinking that everything is so much better overseas. And what I'm excited about is the public is increasingly also being able to have access to design. Like, for instance, when I started my clothing label, I only made clothes for people made to order. Whereas now, my clothes are available in so many different stores around the country. So I think there's design in 10 years' time is going to be even bigger than that. We're going to be associating local labels with international labels.
Okay, great, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Eugene Khoza and designer Craig Jacobs from Fundutsi, joining us to talk about football fan couture. It's the world of fashion and sport colliding in the final rounds of the Nedbank Cup. Eben, back to you.
Yeah, Craig offered to dress me also for today, but unfortunately none of the stuff fit. Finally, we look at sport, and today, well, the ICC World T20 defending champions, the West Indies, lost to Sri Lanka by 27 runs to Duckworth Lewis last night when play was suspended due to rain. The West Indies required another 81 runs with 6 wickets and 37 balls remaining to beat Sri Lanka when play was stopped. Of course, today, South Africa up against India in one of the most anticipated matches in many years. And with me in studio to talk about this from our sports desk, Thabo Daniels. Good morning, Thabo.
Good morning, Eben.
Always when it's this time of the year and competition, they talk about the C word, chokers. This word always comes up whenever South Africa plays cricket at an ICC event come semi-final time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, but I wouldn't like to use the C word because I don't have the proper definition for it, But okay. Without any doubt, it's a big one for South Africa. It's going to be tough because the Indian batting order is powerful, Actually, I think their team is more well-balanced than South Africa because the key point, according to me, they've got a spinning combination that is capable of winning matches. You know, Mishra, Jadeja, and the tall guy Ashwin. You know,
Ashwin, yeah.
And we don't have a match-winning spinner. That's my concern.
So Imran Tahir is not a top wicket taker in the tournament. He's not a match-winning spinner. You're a hard man, Tabo.
You must bear in mind that he'll be playing against cricketers from his own continent.
Yes.
So those guys, they know how to play play the spinners. Maybe he'll be successful against the Aussies or the Windies.
So conditions, yes, in Dhaka it turns a little bit more than where South Africa played in the rest of it, in Chittagong and so forth. So you think today will be very tough for South Africa because of conditions favouring the Indians?
Definitely.
Where will the difference be? Who will have to play really well to make a difference today? Guys like AB de Villiers, JP Duminy, Dale Steyn, these are world beaters, you know. They can put their hand up and put something really special together for South Africa today.
Yeah, I think AB de Villiers, Faf du Plessis should lead from the forefront. Okay, you know, Amla is always a competent player, and they've got JP Duminy, but it's going to be tough.
Are you happy with the way South Africa have played in the tournament so far? It seems as if not one player has stood out, but they played as a bit of a unit, and it looks like different players have put their hands up when they've been needed at different times.
Yeah, you know, sometimes, you know, judging guys based on T20 performances sometimes it's difficult, you know. You don't get chance, you know, to settle in, you know, or as a bowler to find your rhythm quickly, you know.
Are you happy, though, with the brand of cricket that we're playing? We're not overly aggressive. We sort of play the situation. The South African team looks a lot calmer than the South African teams we've seen play in world events in recent times. It looks like this might just be a day where we spring a surprise, and it might just be South Africa's time this time around.
Yes, they're capable of doing that because, okay, with guys like AB de Villiers, Dale Steyn, you know, those guys are match winners. You know, sometimes you have to rely on one or two guys to turn things around for you.
Now, moving on, the ladies are also playing today. What are your views on that?
That one it's hard to predict, you know. It's hard to predict.
Okay, let's move on to football. Chiefs are almost assured. I've got lots of Chiefs supporters here on my Mike's studio, but just tell us about the Chiefs season, and then they're playing Sundowns over the weekend. It should be a title decider almost.
Yeah, to Sundowns it's almost a 6-pointer. Okay, Chiefs at least a draw would be a good result for them. But there's no doubt the Chiefs, they are the as compared Chiefs to Sundowns, they look to be the better drilled team, you know, because they don't rely on single players to score goals for them. Look at Matoo. If you concede set pieces from dangerous positions, they will kill you, they will murder you, you know.
We've got the biggest Buccaneer supporter here in the studio with us. So you have to talk about the Buccaneers also today. Where did it all go wrong this season? You know, at the end of the previous season, it looked like a well-drilled team playing in the African Champions League final, but things just sort of seem to have taken a wrong direction at Orlando Pirates. Where did it all go wrong, if you can say that?
Yeah, playing continental football, and then within short time you come back and play domestic football. You know, traveling take its toll, and then I don't think Pirates were better prepared. You know, or Pirates were well prepared. I think the thing that killed them most was traveling. You know.
Tavo Daniels, thank you for joining us today. Okay. I hope that you're right over the weekend. I hope that you're not right today and that South Africa win. You should be more patriotic than that.
I am. I'm a proudly South African.
Thank you, Tavo Daniels, for joining us. Let's take a final look at what you're talking about on social media. Men in Blue will play T20 World Cup semi-final against South Africa today. Who will demolish the bowling attack? I am Zuer. Yes, proudly South African. I know you live here in Mayfair, but you support India. Waiting for the ICC T20 final. Karabo says, official CSA, all the best to the Proteas today. Shane Warne lends a hand to the Proteas. Very sweet of him. Maybe I like him now. We've always liked Shane Warne. Abraham Martin says, today I wonder if the Proteas will be able to knock out India in the T20 semi-final. And then Sang Noabo says, watching T20 is exciting. I'm loving it. Proteas, proudly Durbanite, proudly South African, and he's not supporting India. Go you, good thing you. Today, we leave you with the behind-the-scenes look of singer Felipe's first single. This is Newsroom on SABC News. We'll be back on Monday. Oh, the clip is not there. I have to say goodbye. Newsroom is broadcast live every weekday between 9 and 10 a.m. A rebroadcast is at 2 every afternoon with a complete show coming up the next morning at 5 a.m. We also stream live on YouTube. On our YouTube channel, you can get us all the time, at your leisure. This is SABC News. We are Newsroom. We love it in the morning.